Hey, how's it going, everyone? Justin again. As always, thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. So after work I decided to pick up some of this Lincoln Super Arc L56030 or 30 thousandths gauge MIG wire, non-flux. Earlier in the week I was able to get our MIG gas tank swapped and a full one given to me, completely wrapped. I also picked up some of this plumber's tape, which I was told I won't need for this. All you should need is the actual gauge itself. I thought I might need it for the hose, either going into it or what have you. They say no at the welding supply store, so I'm just going to take their word for it because they know a lot more about welding than I do. But hey, you can never have enough plumber's tape around the house, pipe leaks, things like that. Alright, for the MIG 170, the Titanium MIG 170 today, I'm going to be setting up the MIG gas and the wire. We're going to do a weld, see how much better it comes out on 110. So this will be a 110 MIG gas example, and we're going to compare it side by side to the 3 Flux Core welds that I did when I first got the welder. So that being said, this time at least I have the instruction booklet, but before I read this, let's cut tape for a second and see what my dad has to say about how to set up the MIG gas.
So what I've done is I depleted the small tank of MIG gas, and I'm going to hook up a brand new cylinder right here. So sometimes they come with a protective wrapper and sometimes they don't. So this one had a protective wrapper. So I took it off. It doesn't matter. I mean, as a precaution, I don't want any debris sitting in here when I hook up everything. You can use your blowgun. I just go like this. Okay, and that blows everything out of that orifice and makes it clean. Here is my MIG gauges. So I'm going to set this on here and start twisting it just by hand like this. There we go. And it's going in, and I do it by hand. And I'm going to get this down to where it's about hand tight, which is right about there. Then I'll set the gauges how I want to look at them. Well, about like that's good. And then I tighten it by hand. Now I have a crescent wrench. You can use whatever wrench you want. And I just snug it a little bit. Don't over tighten it, just snug it. So now what would I do? Okay, so now let's say I turn my MIG machine on. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the gas on.
We'll tighten just a little more.
Yeah, but wait. No, wait. Okay, so if you want to make sure, I could actually pour a little water on here and look for bubbles if you want to. Not going to hurt anything. Soapy water would work better actually. But there's nothing. Okay, so I have a really good seal now. And if I look up here, it's going to tell me, if I read this, I open this valve all the way. And this thing about one of these guys on YouTube say, well, you just crack it a little bit and you're good. That's a bunch of crap. Open this valve up all the way, just like this. Alright, it's all the way open. I've got 2,600 pounds of gas sitting in here. Inside of here is a diaphragm. Now what I have is this knob is like way out. It's not engaging anything, but that diaphragm in there, there's another plate right here. And as I tighten this down, I don't want to tighten it right now, but as you begin to tighten this gauge over here is going to start to move up. That'll tell you how much gas is traveling in down through this line. Now, every MIG welder is different. What I do on mine is, everybody says, well, 18 to 24 is good. Now on mine, which is the Millimatic 211, I set mine 18 to 22, and I'm inside of a garage like a shop. It's fine. It works perfectly fine. I wouldn't crank up this to a larger level. You're just wasting shielding gas. So you want to keep it at a level where it's working for you, but you're not wasting gas, and you don't want it too low. Then your welds are going to turn out like crap, and it's going to spit, sputter, jump all over. because you don't have that shielding gas protecting that welding site. So when I'm done, I come up here and I go ahead and I shut this off. This is the first thing I do. My machine's still running. I shut this off and just tighten it, just like this. It's off. Now, it's still showing that I've got that much, 2,600 pounds in here, depends on what you're using, but, it's still showing. And so that means this whole thing is still charged. And this is charged over here, the line. Well, I want the gas out of this. So I turn around with the diaphragm valve or the diaphragm selector thing here, and I just go like this, and you'll see it's like spins freely. There's no tension behind it at all. Now I hit the trigger on my MIG gun a couple of times, and you'll see this valve will stay where it is, but this valve will dump to 0. So that means you've purged this line out. And at that point, you've done MIG welding, and you can hang, your MIG welding gun up and so forth. But that's the way that I do this. This is the way that it works for me. If you've got other comments or suggestions, you can drop them below. If you are in doubt about this seal, get some soapy water in a little spray bottle. You can go down and buy those at the dollar store, sprit, and then look for bubbling. Okay? Or go like this, and you can listen. Okay? But always remember when you're done MIG welding, shut this off. Sometimes these lines start to get old. Might have some little tiny hole in it that you don't know, and if you don't shut this off, when you come back out in a day or so, your tank's empty, and that's going to cost you. And then you're going to learn the lesson the hard way, because then you're going to go out, you're going to get that refilled, then you got to buy new lines, and you start going through all of this. So you'll get more longevity out of it. These are just simple steps in MIG welding.
Alright, so first things first, we need to, because we're setting it up for direct current electrode positive wire setup for solder core gas shielded welding. In this case, we are going to reverse the polarity. Now, I was incorrect when I did some welding with my dad. I thought if we went from 110 to 220, we needed a reverse polarity. I was incorrect. You guys let me know that. So right now, I'm currently set up for MIG welding for Flux Core, and that means that the ground strap is plugged into the positive, and that the actual connection is plugged into the negative. Now when we're switching over to solid core or gas shielded, we need to switch this. So let me just make sure here. Okay, connect ground to negative. So here's our ground feed. We can follow that over. So we need to disconnect this, disconnect this. We need to move this over to the negative, and we need to move this one over to the positive. Okay, so now we're all set up here. Our polarity is correct based on what it's suggesting here. Now we'll go ahead and we'll go through the tank setup. Alright, sorry, the sun's a little bit in my eyes, so you'll have to forgive me. So what you get with the Titanium MIG 170 is you got your gas line or your feeder line. You also get a pressure regulator, and this pressure regulator screws in to your MIG gas tank. Now I've got this secured. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll show you here in a second. I have it secured here with a ratchet strap so the tank's not moving around. I couldn't see, I do have it ratchet strapped to the back of our welding cart. Now this is not the CGA adapter which they're talking about in the instruction booklet. That kind of confused me, so I'm going to put a few links down in the description to some other videos that were very helpful. One of those was Kevin something or other, I can't remember his name, but I'll put the link down in the description. Anyways, what it's also referred to as is a flow meter, so you're not wasting as much gas by kind of guessing off of the pressure. So once this is installed, we're going to have the amount of gas that we have available, and we're going to have an adjustment here to change the pressure, the regulated pressure that we're wanting to run into the welder. So that's what that is. So if you wanted to get something like that, which I'm thinking of doing, but I'm going to be doing it at a later date, you can. That doesn't mean that you cannot weld without it, as I've seen others that have created welding videos often just go off of the pressure regulator. But again, it's guesswork. So a flow meter will actually tell you how much volume of gas that you're getting as you're welding, whereas the pressure regulator, it's kind of a guesstimation based on environment, whether you're in a shop setting or there's a bit more wind or what have you. So again, it's something that we're gonna have to play with until we get a flow meter, and even when we get a flow meter, we're gonna have to play with that until we get used to it, because I'm not a professional welder. I'm still learning, and you guys are teaching me a lot. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this set up here. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually set up the gas hose to the actual regulator itself. I'm gonna thread it into one end of this regulator. And again, we don't have to use plumber's tape for this, as it was explained to me. So right now I'm snugging it down by hand until I get it connected. Now I see there's an open and there's a close, and I believe close means you're all the way around out, no gas should be flowing. So we're gonna leave it like that for right now. Now I'm gonna set this in here inside the welding machine for a moment. We're gonna take the other end, and on the back side here, and I'll bring the camera around, we're going to put it into the gas input, which is protected by rubber grommet to make sure no dust or debris get in there. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this, but this is the rubber grommet right here on the gas input. I'm just going to pull that off, and I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to save it to the side. So if I decide to go back to Flux Core, I can. Alright, now we're going to put the input, or the other end of our gas hose, into the back of the machine. This is our gas input. Again, I'm going to start off by doing it finger tight or hand tight. Alright, now that I have that set up, I am going to snug this one down a bit more using a 17 millimeter. That's what size this is. And you don't got to go overkill. It's made out of brass, so anywho. Alright, so now I'm going to get my regulator ready. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here with the other end of the gas hose. Just going to go a little bit more than snug. Now that that's all set up, we should be good to go as far as inserting it into our tank. You'll notice here that I have this plastic wrapper. We're going to go ahead and remove that. Alright, so the protective wrapper is removed. Now, as my dad explained and the instructions explained to you, you're going to want to purge the tank to blow out any debris. Now, I asked the question earlier, could you use a blowgun to blow out any debris without wasting any gas? And he said yeah, but again, this is the recommended way. So we're just going to do that real quick. Alright, so that's all done. It was protected anyways. I just cracked it loose enough to be able to clear out or purge the valve. So now we're going to install our regulator. Okay, now as you can see, we have the gauges facing towards us. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to back this off just a hair, turn them at the angle that I think I'm going to want them at, which is somewhere in there, kind of right in the middle. And then I'm going to take a adjustable wrench or crescent wrench and then tighten it up to the tank. Okay, so that's all set. Alright, now that we have that set, the next thing that we need to do is we need to change the spool of wire out. Now, as I said, I picked up this roll of Lincoln Super Arc, which is what I used when I was down at my dad's house. And this is some pretty good stuff. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to snip, flush the wire that's already here. I'm going to put it back into the roll so we can save it for a later date. I'm going to pull the rest of the wire through the machine, through the hose, and then we're going to start running our Lincoln Super Arc through. And we're not going to put any gas in it yet. Right now we're just going to use the electricity to help pull the new wire through. Once it gets to the end, then we can go ahead and adjust our regulator. Alright, so I'm going to try to come as close as I can to the spring. which is going to give me enough wire, hopefully, to reroute it through one of these little holes to save the flux core. Just going to give it a light snip, keeping pressure on it. Okay, we removed our wing nut, our 2 washers, and our spring. Now, in order to save the wire, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a spot that I can re-roll it through here, like so. Pulling it through, and then I'm just going to fold it over, like that. Now we have our flux core for another project. Should we run out of the super arc, should I decide to go back to the flux core. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and put in our super arc. Now, as you can see, they've done the same thing. They just bent it. So now we're going to unbend it. Oh, first, let's push a hole through here. We're going to pull out a piece of it. Because we weren't going to go under, we need to cut off the bent end. I'm going to slide the roll on, like so. Oh, you know what? We still have to pull the old wire. That's okay. Let's at least get it set up. So I'll just take this piece, I'll refold it over here, I'll tuck it back into a hole, and I'll just kind of rebend it until we're ready for it. No big deal. Put our spring in place, our other washer, and our wing nut. And again, when I'm putting this on, I might go backwards a little bit and then rerun it. And I'm not going to go over tight, but I do want it snug. Alright, now we have to remove the old strand of flux core from our gun. So to do so, I'm just going to grab it and try to pull it through. Oh, we might need to undo our spring, sorry. So I'll just loosen this up a bit. Fold it over. Now there's no tension on the wire. Now we can hopefully pull it through. Seems like such a waste of wire, I know, but when you want to switch it up, that's what you can expect. Alright, so now that our gun's clear, we can pull the tip off and we can inspect it. We can inspect our barrel, make sure we're all good there. We can look at our tip, which still looks pretty new. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. Looks like we can run it. So I'm going to put this tip back on. Make sure we're on 110, which we are. We have reverse polarity, which we do. Now we can go ahead, we can pull our wire back out now and set it up. Now we'll snip off another little piece. And we're going to start routing it through our machine. I feel like it's a little bit loose, so I'm going to tighten it up a little more. Now we're set for 30 thousandths, so this shouldn't be an issue at all. Okay, I got it passing through. That might even be on 35 thousandths. I think it's on 30 though. Okay, so now that we got that going through, we're going to close the wheel. We're going to snug it down a bit. Let's power on our machine and just make sure it's feeding through. Again, I'm not running gas right now, okay? We're just trying to get the wire pulled through. What's our wire speed at? The wire speed is around 5. Let's go up to 6. Might have to back this up a smidgen. There we go. Okay, it's starting to slow down. It might be getting to the end. Let me pull this off real quick. Sometimes when it comes to the, when you're feeding in new wire, it's easier to do it with the tip off, and then you can slide the tip over the wire. Alright, so now we got ourselves a little piece of wire. We can slide our tip on, thread it down, put our protective barrel on, and snip off whatever excess we don't want. I'm just going to do like I normally do. I usually go at a bit of an angle, which gives me about 1/4 of an inch hanging out, and I snip it. That's all I do. Alright, now that that's all set up, let's power it down for a moment. Let me get geared up. Let me get our gloves, our welding hood. I'll close the flap here to the titanium, and then we'll turn on our gas. We'll set it to the settings that my dad had recommended, and then let's strike an arc and see what we got. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to power on our welder. I'm going to open our gas, and we're going to see if we have any leaks. Okay, I've got it opened a fair amount. It's registering at around just under 2,000 psi, so about 1,900 psi. Another reason why you want this thing strapped down, it's a lot of pressure. Alright, we do have the, now the regulator going to the welder is at 0. And it is hard to hear if that thing's leaking. Let's see. Let me turn it back off for a second. Okay, I don't hear anything leaking. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the valve, allowing gas to flow through into our machine. In fact, let me open this door up, because there's another valve up here to the front that feeds the gas in. We want to make sure that's not leaking, that's not leaking, that's not leaking. So I'm going to carefully open it up. We're going to go to about 18 psi. I heard the diaphragm. Okay, we're at about 10. I don't hear anything leaking, so that's good. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and close our welding machine up. Let's go to about 18 like my dad said. I'm going to go ahead and power this on. I'll meet you guys over at the welding station. Alright, so I have my ground clamp set up, which my dad had talked about in the previous video when I went to visit him, and I'll post links to his channel down in the description. But key important thing, if you can clamp onto the project like we are able to now, we can, but you want the ground cable going towards the top. He explains why. So go watch that video, check it out. He'll explain to you why that he does that. I forget what the term is. But alright, you can see here, and I'm going to zoom in. Here are the 3 previous welds with Flux Core with this welder at 30 thousandths. Now, in my honest opinion, like I said, I think they're pretty decent welds. There's a heck of a lot more spatter, and you got a nice weld in comparison to that 90 amp Flux Core welder that I've been using for years. So this being a new machine, call it an upgraded machine, going to the titanium MIG where I can use gas if I want, I'm gonna see how today rolls with using MIG gas for the first time with this welder. So let me focus you guys in here, and let's get this gun popping. Alright, so before I start, I have my wire speed set at around 6. I'm going to have the MIG voltage set around 5, and the smoothness set around 5 as well. Just in case you guys were wondering what my settings were. Go ahead and move these cables out of my way. Alright, let's rock and roll. Wow, that is a much prettier weld. Now let's talk about this weld for a moment, shall we? Now here's with the gas. Hopefully you guys can see that. That is a big difference between what we got with the 110 and what we got using gas. Now I might not have it tuned perfectly at this point. I might be able to use a little bit more gas. I might be able to adjust the speed a little bit. I was kind of dragging my weld and doing little tiny circles to try to create the cleanest weld that I possibly could. This previous weld, I also did like more of a circle or like a little U shape, like a crescent shape, and just kind of went back and forth as I was doing it. So let me come over here now. I'm going to go ahead and turn the welder back on. I'm going to adjust the pressure now up to 20, and I think I'm going to leave the other settings alone for the meantime. Alright, so now I got the pressure set at 20, and all the other settings are about the same. All right, let's talk about this weld for a moment. All right, so from what I'm seeing between the two, trying to be as consistent as I possibly can, not a lot of difference between running 18 psi over 20 psi as far as the MIG gas is concerned. Again, a lot cleaner weld. I think with time and practice, like anything else, these welds will only get better. Let me go ahead and power down the machine and shut it down for this evening. I do have a project that I'm going to talk about, and then we'll wrap things up at the conclusion. Alright, so I'm getting ready to wrap things up. I'm all done welding for the meantime. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the gas, the actual MIG gas itself, the argon gas. It's getting turned off. So I'm closing the valve right now. So now that's all closed. The second thing is we still have about 20 psi worth of argon still in the system. So now what I'm going to do, or hope to do, is that by not welding anything, I'm going to turn the machine back on, and I'm simply just going to let the pressure out with the gun. Or at least I would hope I could. Let me go ahead and try to close the valve and see how that works. Okay, the valve's closed. Interesting, interesting. Still have pressure. You would figure that the gas would have to come out. Let me try something real quick. The pressure's still staying. So I just tried an experiment. I thought I would go ahead and try to see if I actually went back just to kind of put the gun on something and weld something with it, if it would clear the chamber. But it hasn't cleared the chamber. My gas is off. So how do you purge the system? Or do you? Alright guys, I leave this one to my fellow welders. I thought I had a more than better idea of how I can purge the system and clear out the lines. I've got no more pressure as of right now. The diaphragm is closed. Our tank is closed. Clearly trying to run the pressure out of the gun is not working. I'm not too entirely sure if I should even worry about it. You guys let me know down in the comments, please. Alright everybody, so that'll pretty much wrap up today's video. Closing thoughts. Closing thoughts are, look, I learned a lot from my dad when it comes to setting up MIG gas. I learned a lot about what a flow meter was and how important it could be to have that CGA adapter, but not completely necessary if you just want to get out in the garage and start welding and messing with some Lincoln Super Arc like I did tonight. So it was really cool to see both sides, to see someone actually using it professionally and why it's important to have a flow meter, and to see somebody else that's just doesn't use it often enough to burn through an entire tank of gas and that can have a little bit of fun with it. So you guys also got a chance to check it out and see how to set up your Titanium MIG 170. So hopefully that video was helpful for you. You got a chance to see some of the differences between 110 volt Flux Core, and you got a chance to see some Lincoln Super Arc with MIG gas. Night and day difference, man. Night and day difference. Now, was I as impressed with the MIG gas welds that we achieved this evening that I was with the Miller? No, I thought the Miller performed like a dream. But again, you're paying high dollar. Pro use versus home use, okay? But I am still very impressed with the type of welds that I can get from the MIG 170, even being a weekend warrior slash DIY artist welder, if you will. This is just me doing it for fun. Okay, upcoming projects that I would like to do using the welder. So now that I have my toolbox, my Harbor Freight 56-inch, and if you haven't seen the video, I'll put a little card up here or over here. Now that I have it set up at work, it's nice overflow, it's a workbench surface. I've got the Lauren vise at the end of it that we picked up from Tractor Supply, and again, I'll toss a card up here if you guys didn't get a chance to see me mounting it. Am I worried about the holes in the toolbox? No, absolutely not. With that runner beam, that support beam going across underneath, and the vise straddling it, so that way the bolts and the nuts are on opposite sides of it, and that whole core support or that center support beam that goes across is protecting it from any kind of hitting and whatnot. Also, it's not going to be like the be-all end-all vise where we beat on everything with it, but it's going to be very handy for the shop to have a workable vise that we can braze aluminum fittings and different types of AC lines or power steering lines, and we can use it to hammer out a couple of things and maybe some bushings and some control arms, so it's going to be very handy to have. Another thing that I wanted to do with the welder as far as talking about welding projects was concerned is I thought about making like a little tiny like a shelving unit that I can kind of put on top. Not something that's going to overpower the entire box, but something I could put on the back side where I could put like little random nuts and bolts or little specialty, you know, washers or what have you in there. Maybe keep it for, you know, drain plugs and whatnot. I don't know, I haven't decided. Can make little cubby holes for the oil change stickers and just weird things like that. Or maybe it's another spot for tools. Maybe I decide to put like, you know, a little organizer on top of somewhat. I don't know, I'm gonna play with it. I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna try to mess around this weekend and take some me time. I've been doing a lot of things at work. I've been doing a lot of things at the house. I just like to try to relax. So this weekend I'm just going to try to kick it and relax and see what it is that I can come up with. And that's pretty much all that I got for this video. If you guys liked it and you learned something from it, give it a thumbs up. Share it if you want to share. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Deuces.